This is the Morning Tempo podcast. I am your host, Robonzo. On this podcast, I have conversations with business owners and the entrepreneurial with the slant toward creativity. It's an opportunity for you to learn with me from people who are finding success in the business world, all intended to make your entrepreneurial journey a little bit easier. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I am speaking in this episode with Louise Brogan of Social B. That's B as in creating a buzz about your business. But before we do that, I want to ask, how are you? Experiencing any pandemic fatigue like me? If I'm being honest with you, I am experiencing a little fatigue over this. But hey, I'm healthy. My wife's healthy. My family's healthy. We're all relatively happy. So that's a good thing. I hope the same is true for you. If you want to let me know, you can find all my contact infos at morningtempo.com or at Robonzo Drummer on the socials. I really want to hear from you. So Louise is on a mission to teach others how to build business with LinkedIn. We met or became acquainted at Podcast Movement Virtual, formerly Podcast Movement 2020, where she is a speaker. We believe we actually met at Upreneur Summit back in 2017, which was held in London, England. But that was probably a brief meeting, a brief encounter. So I don't think either one of us were sure about that. We talk about some of the finer points of building a network of prospective clients and people you actually like using LinkedIn, as well as new features in the LinkedIn app and website, such as LinkedIn Stories and LinkedIn Live. Those were both new to me, especially LinkedIn Stories. I'm behind the times, man. Louise also details some of the ways she's using LinkedIn in her business, and we talk a little about repurposing content and a whole lot more. So without further ado, here is me and Louise Brogan. Well, thank you for making time for me. I appreciate it. And I was intrigued when I encountered you on, what are they calling that? Is it Swipe Card? Is that the platform that they're using that for Podcast Movement Virtual?
I'm not really sure.
Well, by the way, so for those of you listening, we met online here this week as we're recording this episode, as we're both attending or attendees or ticket holders of Podcast Movement 2020.
Yes.
And we're doing the virtual thing in, what is this, October of 2020? Yeah.
Yes. It's the 17th month of this year.
Yeah, the lost year, I think it's going to go down as. But as soon as I logged into the platform, I think it's called Swipe Card. You were commenting on it before we got officially rolling here. But yeah, it's set up for some nice socializing.
Yes.
And I ran across you, and the LinkedIn work that you do was intriguing, and because, well, for a couple of reasons. I mean, LinkedIn has gone through a number of changes in, I'll call it the last couple of years, maybe longer. Actually, they're always going through changes, but there's been some remarkable things that have happened in the last couple of years. And I have had a guest on here who talked about video for LinkedIn. He is also in the UK, like yourself.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So I thought it would be really fun to talk about what you're doing. I love, by the way, maybe you can comment on these things, but I love these kind of tagline things that you have on both social and on your website for linking in with Louise and learn how to leverage LinkedIn. So what do those things mean for you and your business?
So yeah, I love a good bit of alliteration. I help people understand how to use LinkedIn. So a lot of people listening probably have a LinkedIn account that they had from way back when it kind of launched. And a lot of the clients that I work with, when they come to me and they say, "Oh, I don't even know if I know my login for LinkedIn," which is, and I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm on a one-woman mission to get people to look at LinkedIn in a different light, especially business owners. And because it's the social media platform that people go to talk about business. And I think LinkedIn's own marketing email says something similar. And it's really about building a network on there of potential customers and clients, but also a network that you really like. And then leveraging that for business in terms of building relationships, Roberto, not in terms of going straight for the jugular and saying, here's my sales offer and come and work with us doesn't work. Like it so doesn't work that way. But LinkedIn themselves have put in so many features this year alone that make it such an interesting place to be. We just got LinkedIn stories in the UK literally this week.
What? LinkedIn, I didn't even know about this.
Yes. So have you got LinkedIn stories?
I don't know. Let me check really quick as we're talking. Just keep on going and I'm going to look.
So yeah, LinkedIn stories. You can only get it on your mobile app. You can't get it on your desktop.
Well, hey, I'm not going to find out then. I'll have to get the app later.
Yeah, we'll have to check. We'll have to check later. It rolled out in America and Canada, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And it came to the UK this week. And I actually talked to the guy who's behind the rollout, which is really cool. That's the thing with LinkedIn. The staff at LinkedIn are very approachable. They're very, if you connect with one of them, I think it seems to be a nice place to work, which I like about it as well. That sounds a bit corny, but it does seem to be that the staff that I've come into contact with are really nice and they seem to enjoy working there. But LinkedIn stories are there. There's LinkedIn Live. I'm doing a LinkedIn Live in a couple of hours' time. There are video posts. You can send video. You can set up a Zoom call inside LinkedIn Messenger. So like if you contacted me and said, oh, Louise, I'm really interested in learning more about LinkedIn. Could we have a chat about it? I could say, yes, when suits. And if you said, Tuesday at 10, I can actually create the Zoom, schedule a Zoom call inside my Messenger on LinkedIn.
That's pretty cool.
Tons of new features.
And do you know if that particular feature is the app only, or is that also on the web app?
That is also on desktop because I was doing a training with I think you're in Texas, aren't you?
Well, I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. I spent a number of years there and I met my wife in Texas, and we also spent a number of years in Silicon Valley, nice. Right down the road, from LinkedIn practically. And, yes. And now I'm in Panama. My wife and I are in Panama since 2016 in Central America. Nice. I saw your eyes get big.
Sounds cool. So I was working with a team yesterday and from San Antonio, Texas.
Lovely place.
Yeah. Well, I've never been anywhere sunny. Is just good for me. I live in Northern Ireland. It's, it's sunny today, but it's not very warm. Warm and sunny is a big appeal for us.
Sure.
But yeah, so we were able to set up one of these Zoom calls inside the Messenger on the desktop. So yes, you can do that on desktop as well.
That's cool. Well, speaking of sunny, I don't know the cost comparison from where you are, but Panama is a lovely place to visit for sunshine as well. So if you ever
could be on. So my husband and I have already agreed that whenever the kids get older and go off to uni, like we've so many trips planned. So I can work anywhere. We can literally just get a camper van or a motorhome. I don't know what you call it, a Winnebago in America.
Yeah. All of those work.
And we'll just travel everywhere. We'll travel across Europe. We'll go to America. We'll coast to coast. We'll go to Canada. Can't wait. Have to come to Panama now too.
That would be great. Well, if you make it here, you must ping me so we can get together for coffee or whatever. So did I see right that you're actually a speaker at Podcast Movement?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm on a panel. It's a panel called How Not to Get Your Pitch Deleted When You Are Pitching Podcasts. That's not the actual title, but it's about not getting your pitch deleted when you pitch podcasts to be a guest.
Oh, wow. And did the session already happen? Well, I guess it was pre-recorded, yes or no?
No, it's live. It's live on Tuesday.
Okay, cool.
So it's coming up on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I am participating in an online game called Quiplash as well.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Like a breakout session. So that's going to be interesting.
I look forward to watching the one on Tuesday, and yes. I will check out this other one too. So that's a great topic. I think you don't have to be in podcasting too long to realize there are all these things you must do to get it out there, and that guesting is a really powerful tool.
Yes.
But yeah. So, we were talking about my Unstarving Musician podcast as well, and you thought you were going to be on that one, but pleasant surprise, it's on a small biz podcast, so it's maybe a little more appropriate. But I have seen a number of pro musicians lately, some of my, idols on LinkedIn regularly. So to me, that's saying that they're working with either their labels or probably not PR, but they're getting a little influence that's saying, hey, this is a great place for you to be in this stage of your career.
Yes.
Now, a lot of these ones that I've seen, they're not exclusively like touring musicians, which nobody is at the moment, but they're doing other things, like they might be speaking, they're doing clinics, or maybe they're doing mentoring, high-end music lessons, these kind of things.
Yes.
Have you ever seen any of these folks?
No, but I'm completely going to go and look after this. So my music idol is Bruce Springsteen. And considering he just had an emoji made for him on Twitter this week and he didn't really know what an emoji was, I don't think he's going to be on LinkedIn.
I don't think he is. You know, you're kind of, well, I think when you find some, and if you want to see some examples, you let me know and I'll send you a couple that I've run into.
Yes.
I mean, there were first some that I wasn't acquainted with them as a music artist or musician, but I was acquainted with some of their work. And then there were some, I was like, there was this guy that came on recently. I'm like, oh my God, I saw you like, I think on 3 different occasions way back long ago.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to connect with you. And the other cool thing about them is, for whatever reason, they're just super easy to connect with. But I suppose that comes a little bit with how long we've been on LinkedIn and how we approach people to connect, which is another great thing I'd love to hear you talk about. I was looking at your podcast.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great topics, but I'm betting either it was on your podcast or a blog, there was something about how to connect with people and how not to on LinkedIn. You talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm firmly in the camp of connecting people and personalizing your invitation. So when you connect with somebody, you're doing it because you actually want to be connected to that person, and you send them a note, so you add a note to your invitation to connect, explaining why you want to connect with them. And there's several reasons behind this. But first of all, you get so many connection requests where there's no note and you don't really know why the person's connecting with you. And it makes you a bit wary sometimes, especially if you haven't heard of them before and you might think they're going to jump straight into a sales pitch. But when you send a note to somebody to connect, they're quite likely to reply to your note, and suddenly you're in a one-to-one conversation with that person, which completely changes the dynamic of your relationship. So at the moment, I have about 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. So you can imagine if I get 3 or 4 connection requests today, and one of them has a note and the other 2 don't have a note. The 2 that don't have a note, if I decide to accept them into my network because they look like the kind of people that I potentially work with, or I'm interested in what they're talking about, they fall into my group of 5,000. But the person who sent the note, I'm going to read that note. I actually go and look at their profile to see what it is they do, and then I reply to them. So you are putting yourself so far down the road of getting to know somebody and them getting to know you, just by that simple adding a note. And I think that's really, really important.
What about the after connecting? I've had a little bit of conversation with people in the past about this. What is your I don't know if there's a generic recommendation, but what about so you connected with me, or I let's say it's the other way around. I connected with you on LinkedIn. I sent a nice note. Yes. Then what?
So depending on what you said in the note. So I would get a lot of people who connect with me. And this week I've had a lot of people from Podcast Movement connect with me, and they will say something like, oh, I saw your name that you're speaking at Podcast Movement. I'd like to connect with you. So I will generally I'll thank them for that. And, if there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. Depending on the timing. So for example, I have a webinar coming up next week, which is free. And from Monday, if someone connects with me with a note, and they just say, oh, I'm learning about LinkedIn, or I heard you in a podcast, or blah, blah, blah. I'll say, well, I've got free training this week. If you want to sign up for it, feel free. Here's the link. That is as salesy as I get in the messaging. But if somebody connects, the whole strategy around it, Roberta, it's a lot deeper than this. But generally, if I see someone has looked at my profile and they look like the perfect fit for me. So for example, I've done a lot of work recently with financial services companies. And somebody who is sales and marketing director for a financial services company has looked at my LinkedIn profile. Now, I have premium, so I can see who's looked at my profile. And we haven't connected yet, but I see that they have we're both connected to somebody else that I've worked with or somebody else that I know. I would send them a connection request and just send them and explain why I'm connecting with them. I see we're both connected to Alex. You're working in financial services. It's great to meet you. I'd like to add you to my network. They might not reply. They may reply, but if I am being strategic about this, I will then look out for them posting on LinkedIn, or I'll go to their profile and see when did they last post, what did they post about, and I'll leave a comment under their post that is like a proper genuine comment, not a, oh, good news or congratulations or something that really starts a conversation, because the whole ethos of how I work with people on LinkedIn is about starting conversations. Yeah. The way I write a post is about opening up conversations. When I'm messaging people, it's about opening up conversations. If I comment on someone's post, it's about starting a conversation with that person. And they might not be looking for support or work with me right now, but as I comment on their stuff, they're much more likely, especially as we've just connected, they're more likely to be served up my content in the first week or so, because that's just how LinkedIn works.
Good to know.
And then that just gives me visibility in front of them. And generally, it takes quite a few touch points before somebody reaches out to say, actually, we need your help or we need your support. But it might be with corporates especially. It could be 6 months down the road. Somebody says in a meeting, you know what, I think we need somebody to help us with LinkedIn. I'm going to be top of mind because we've had the one-to-one connection conversation, and I'm raising my visibility by posting consistently, and also if I see their content by commenting on it.
Can you give some examples of the type of posting that you do that may grab prospective clients' attention during those first days or weeks that you mentioned?
Yes. So people connect with me and follow me because I share how to use LinkedIn. That is the whole entire business that I have. Sure. So I share content regularly. That may be, I've actually started doing like a weekly little video, like a 3 or 4 minute video explaining different pieces of LinkedIn. So this week I did a video on where you should add your contact information on LinkedIn. So not just on the contact info button, but also inside your about section, kind of amplifying your message. So I made a little video about that this week. And last week I did a video about, I can't remember, something along really just how to use LinkedIn. So by being consistent and showing up with these videos and writing the post that accompanies with it to ask a question so people start to engage with those videos. Interestingly, the text only posts that I write that ask questions, I tend to get 10, 12 comments on a normal post. The video posts, people are actually sharing them to their own network instead of commenting on them. So I find that's really interesting. It's getting me in front of a lot more people, but they're not necessarily commenting underneath the post, but I'm getting a lot of visibility through those video posts. It's interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. And is your ability to see what's happening with those part of premium, or are you using some other analytics to learn what's happening with those?
Everybody can see the analytics on every post that you do. You can see the analytics on your posts that you do. So once you've put out a post, at the bottom of each post, there's a little graph on the left-hand corner, and it will show you, it might say something like, 150 views or 3,000 views or whatever. You click on that, it opens up a whole pop-up window, and it tells you the companies that most people are. So there's 3 columns. The first column is what organizations are people coming from who are looking at your post. The middle column is the job titles. So it might say 20% are executive directors, 15% are marketing managers. And then the third column is the cities that they are mainly coming from. And it's all ranked by percentage. So at the top of that screen, if someone has shared it, it'll say 2 reshares or 3 reshares. So it's really fascinating.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You probably gather from some of the questions, or maybe I don't know if you've seen my LinkedIn profile, that I'm not there a lot. I'd like to be more, and I actually advocate it because I know it is becoming a great tool. It's for me also, like, I'm getting this, I can hardly even qualify it as a love-hate relationship with social now. It's getting kind of ugly. And predominantly, Facebook, rightfully or wrong, stands at the top of that. And I think part of that is just because, you get exposed to just a lot of weird things there. I have seen some, sadly, on LinkedIn as well in the past, recent past. So it's changed as well. But I do think, I'm sure you'll agree that it is still a more sort of message focused, business focused place, and not as much a place for opinions that, I don't know, maybe belong on Facebook or something.
So I am very good at unfollowing people in my news feed, Roberto. So I don't disconnect from them because they may be people who are sharing my content out. But if people are, so I grew up in Northern Ireland. So we are literally, it's drummed into us from we were born. You don't bring up politics or religion. You just don't do it in this country. And I think that's a really good rule to live by in terms of your social media. So people who are complaining about stuff or talking about politics or whatever, I tend to unfollow them. Unless it's like, because there's an election coming up or something and I know they'll go back to normal afterwards. But I prefer to have business connections and networks on LinkedIn. That's what it's for. Yeah,
sure. I've done much of the same predominantly on Facebook, but my other tactic, I know we're not talking so much about Facebook here, is I have created a link in Firefox. So when I open Firefox, there are like some of my most visited things, and my Facebook link goes to one of my pages. So I'm not even going to get hit with anything weird when I first get there. So because otherwise I have no idea. And it's, it can be such a vortex, all of social media, distractionary. So, okay, I'm going a little bit out of order, but I feel like I should ask about the history of your business, and go ahead and tell me also, like, what is the core of what you're trying to do?
Okay, yeah. So I worked as a project manager for years in the health service here in the UK. And when I had my kids, I knew I wanted to work for myself. So I started doing social media management for other people. Because I've always had a love of computers. It was IT project management I did. I've had an email address since like 1987 or something crazy. So I've always loved computers, IT, tech, all that stuff. So I started helping people with social media, realized pretty fast that I wanted to teach it rather than run accounts for people. And I niched down into specifically LinkedIn about 2 years ago.
Okay.
When I just realized like a lot of different reasons came kind of crashing all together. But I knew I wanted to speak on stages, and to do that within social media, you need to really pick a niche, and LinkedIn was the niche for me. I now work with clients and companies from all over the world, which is wonderful. And I work with entrepreneurs, and I work with small to medium-sized enterprises. I've spoken on stages in Los Angeles, actually, nice. London and Dublin, and love speaking. I mean, kind of my podcast is 143 episodes old. It's just like
go ahead.
Someone's given me a platform to speak. I'm away.
Yeah, cool. I was looking at your podcast, by the way, and I didn't ascertain the number of episodes by looking at it in, I think it was the desktop Apple Podcasts page that kind of shows a listing. So I suppose it might be a little strange the way they've got it set up. But anyway, that's cool. 143, I think. So for the Morning Tempo podcast that we're doing this for, I'm not even to 50. For the Unstarving Musician, I'm at 180-ish. So
excellent.
I feel for you, all the work you put in. It's great. Good job.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think like a lot of podcasters, I love recording the podcast. Then I send it to my editor, and then it's all those other bits that I really need to do to promote it is where we all kind of fall down, because then we're thinking about, well, who are we talking to next? What are we talking about next?
Yeah, exactly.
I love of my business is doing podcasting, that's for sure.
Yeah, great. They are fun. And this whole, I wasn't doing video. And prior to the global pandemic here, I'd been thinking more and more about it, and didn't start doing what we're doing in March or anything. And in fact, this is kind of the first handful of episodes where I'm just going to try different things.
Yes.
Initially I had done some with Skype, which presents a unique set of problems because it just doesn't have, at least my setup doesn't have like an automatic video thing where I can get my guest and myself. So,
yes.
but anyway, we'll see how it goes. I am, all of my content, like a lot of people, is on YouTube in audio format. I have starting to use transcriptions more, so I'm going to put those on YouTube, which I understand will be very, very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I'm going to do is go with snippets of videos initially, since I don't do the, although this one would be great. But, I get in there with some of the editing, and like I was going through one yesterday that published today for the Unstarving Musician, and, chopping some bits out. And I'm like, I just made the video completely different because I cut some bits out of the audio independently of the video. So anyway, this will be easier though, especially since we're in a 30-minute format. Yeah. There was another topic you brought up. I was trying to pick one, and this from the podcast. And I thought, well, this one looks really interesting to me. And I think I've even possibly met Amy Woods in London, maybe.
Oh.
Or I'm connected to her. But repurposing your content for LinkedIn.
Yes.
Do you have anything fresh to tell us about that?
Did you meet her at Upreneur Summit?
Mm-hmm. I would have, yeah.
Okay, yes. I went to the first two of those. They were fabulous conferences.
I was there with you for the first one.
Excellent. Oh my goodness. I wish we were doing that again. It should be on like in the next few weeks. Oh, next year. Next year.
They are fun.
Yeah, so repurposing your content. So what I've been doing is I found out in the last year or so that I actually really love writing blog posts. I just didn't know that maybe I didn't have a specific focus before, but I've discovered I love writing. And what I've been doing, I've written 5 articles for Social Media Examiner so far on LinkedIn. Nice. And then taking those, because I'm researching the pieces to the nth degree. So then turning that into a podcast episode is so simple. I did one recently on how to use video on LinkedIn. And because it's literally all written out there in the blog post, it's really nice and easy to turn that into a podcast episode, which I love. But what I do with my podcast then is it comes out on the Wednesday. On the Monday or Tuesday before it comes out, I tend to do a post on LinkedIn asking my audience about the topic that the podcast is about. This is my strategy for the week for LinkedIn. I do also talk about other things in LinkedIn in between. But say, for example, if I was doing how to sell authentically on LinkedIn, on the Monday, I might do a poll asking my LinkedIn network, how do you feel about sales on LinkedIn? And, love it, it's too sleazy, it's, whatever options you give. That gets the conversation going with my network about sales. Then the podcast comes out on the Wednesday, and I say to those people, well, the podcast is out if you want to have a listen to how we talk about selling authentically. And then on the Friday, I get the guests from the podcast and we go live on LinkedIn and talk about that topic. And we pull the questions that people and the discussion points that the people have had from the 2 previous posts on LinkedIn that week. And we talk about that on the LinkedIn Live podcast. Then the LinkedIn Live gets downloaded and uploaded to YouTube onto my YouTube channel. So that sounds really like it runs really smoothly, like clockwork, not quite, but that's pretty much my strategy. And it works. I like having a strategy for a start. Say for the first few years of my business, there wasn't a lot of strategic direction. So, but like all business owners, you learn as you go, don't you? And you improve and reiterate. So.
Yeah. I love that. And I especially like your mention, because I've done something similar with the articles and what you were doing in conjunction, turning pieces into podcast episodes. I had a very similar experience. And I'm not sure it was in the same order, but I was researching for an article for Forbes, Forbes.com. For musicians, kind of the business of independent musicians. And so I was doing some interviews for these, which were informational gathering interviews. Yes. So the pieces that got published were not interviews, but I used every one of those for a podcast episode, a shorter, a different format one. So it was lovely, really nice.
Yes. I mean, you do all that work, you need to use it. Right?
Exactly. So let's close with a question about the bee. What's the story with the bee? I really like it in your brand.
So when I was building my business, coming up with a business idea, and I knew it was social media, and one day I just went, social B, creating a buzz about your business. And I think I said to my extended family, what do you think about that? And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. So that's where it came from. And then it's NI for Northern Ireland. But it's kind of funny because some of my American connections thought it was like the business networking BNI. So it's not, it'll be NI because I'm from Northern Ireland.
I had a similar thought. And I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't fit. But because when you say it, you're like, oh, BNI. But I don't know. I figured in the B, I figured it had something to do, but I didn't get the Northern Ireland part, but I love it.
No, nobody
thank
does.
You. Well, hey, you were here to explain it on the podcast. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I will check out your talk at Podcast Movement. I'll try to check out both of them.
Yes.
And hopefully live. I've been doing some of these things, watching some of them on replay. And I know you were confessing that you had a busy week, and I know how it goes. These virtual ones, when they have so much content, I have good intention to just focus on it nonstop, yes. But it just doesn't seem to work out that way.
No. I'll tell you a secret, Roberto. They wanted to have our talk about 10 or 11 p.m. at night in the UK. And I just said, look, I will be asleep. But nothing I say will make any sense because my brain shuts off about 10 p.m. So luckily it's about 9:15 in the evening here. So after that, I'll be just lying in a puddle somewhere recovering.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that. I look forward to seeing it. And hopefully, I don't know if you have plans to, and hopefully it will happen. But I don't know if you rolled your ticket to Nashville for next year in 2021. I plan to be there, and I hope that you will be too.
Well, I hope I get invited back to speak. That would be awesome.
It would be great. Well, if you are there, you let me know. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'll be in touch with you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers. This episode was powered by ConvertKit. More than just an email marketing company, ConvertKit is focused on landing pages too, giving beginner creators everything they need to start building an email list. I've been using ConvertKit since early 2016. Their new free plan allows creators to make unlimited landing pages and forms. You can choose from multiple templates, add personalization, add design, include an incentive email, create a thank you page, manage subscribers, and send broadcast emails. The support and educational resources at ConvertKit are top-notch, and that is important to me. It should be to you. To learn how ConvertKit can help you connect with your audience so that you can make a living doing the work that you love, go to morningtempo.com/convert or the show notes for this episode. Thanks again for listening. This podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. To learn about the different ways that you can support the podcast, visit morningtempo.com/crowdsponsor. There you can also join the Morning Tempo email list for insiders who want to know what I'm learning from the business owners and entrepreneurs that I speak with and work with, including those you hear on this podcast. Morning Tempo insiders get an occasional email from me with business insights, recommendations, hacks, and anything else I come across that could help you in your creative entrepreneurial journey. And it's free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to your favorites. With a whole lot of love to my good friend and former bandmate, Frank Salazar, who wrote and performed the Morning Tempo podcast theme song. Frank, you rock. Ciao for now.